Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever met someone who made you feel like you were everything they ever wanted only for them to suddenly disappear, leaving you wondering what changed? One day he's calling you nonstop, making you believe it's finally real, and the next he's cold, distant, and full of excuses. You start to question yourself, your worth, your intuition. But what if I told you it's not that he stopped liking you, it's that something inside him panicked the moment things got real? Because the truth is, when a man pulls away, it's not rejection, it's revelation, and understanding that changes everything. And ladies and gentlemen, have you ever found yourself asking, why do men act so interested, only to pull away just when you start to care? One moment, he's texting you every morning, making you feel like you're the only person on his mind. He's planning dates, saying all the right things, and making you believe that this time it's different. Then suddenly, the energy shifts, the texts slow down, the calls stop coming. You start replaying every interaction, wondering what changed, what you did wrong, and why he seems to have vanished without explanation. But let's pause for a second, because this pattern, this sudden distance, isn't always about you. It's about the emotional dynamic that takes place between two people when interest starts to grow. Sometimes, when a man begins to feel real connection, something inside him panics. It's not because he doesn't like you. It's because the very thing he's been chasing, the emotional intimacy, the bond, the vulnerability, suddenly becomes real. And for some men, real feels like danger, real feels like risk, real feels like losing control. And you see, when a man is pursuing you in the beginning, he's in a space where he's driven by curiosity, attraction, and excitement. There's no real fear yet. There's no deep vulnerability. He's in pursuit mode where his ego feels alive, where he's the hunter, where everything feels light, easy, and full of possibility. But the moment he starts to feel something more, when you go from being a possibility to being a potential emotional investment, that's when the panic sets in. And because now it's not just about the thrill, it's about the risk of losing, and for many men, the fear of loss outweighs the excitement of connection. It's not logical, it's emotional, and it happens deep beneath the surface. Suddenly, his instincts tell him, wait. If I keep going, I could actually get hurt. I could lose control. I could fail at this. So instead of leaning in, he pulls back. But here's the part most people miss. When a man pulls away, it's not always a sign that he's lost interest. Sometimes it's a test of how safe it feels to stay connected. It's a test of whether he can still be himself while being close to you. Because if every time he pulls away, you chase, panic, or demand answers, it reinforces the idea that closeness equals pressure. But if, when he pulls back, you stay grounded, calm, and confident, if you show that your world doesn't collapse just because he stepped back, that's when he begins to feel safe again. And this is the paradox of attraction. When you try to hold on tightly to someone who's pulling away, they feel the weight of your expectation. But when you stay centered in your own life, when you keep your energy on your purpose, your joy, your growth, that's when you create space for him to come back on his own. Not because you manipulated him, but because your energy reminds him of the freedom he felt when he first met you. And so many people think that the secret to keeping a man is to do more, text more, explain more, fix more. But the truth is, the most powerful thing you can do is less reacting, less overthinking, less trying to convince him of your worth. Because your worth isn't up for debate. It's not something he gives you by staying. It's something you own regardless of what he does. And when you start living from that truth, something incredible happens. The energy shifts. You stop trying to decode his every move, and instead, you start focusing on your own consistency. You become the calm in the chaos. You become the standard he has to rise to, not the one chasing him for validation. And that shift changes everything. And because the truth is, sometimes when a man pulls away, it's his process of testing his feelings. He's recalibrating. He's trying to figure out what this connection means to him. Men, especially those who haven't yet learned emotional awareness, can mistake deep connection for loss of freedom. They equate vulnerability with weakness, so when they feel something real, they instinctively retreat to a place where they feel in control again. But here's the key. If that distance makes you crumble, he learns that being close to you equals emotional chaos. But if he sees that you're okay, that you're still smiling, still living, still being your amazing self, then he realizes that being close to you doesn't mean losing himself. It means expanding his world, and when he sees that, the pull becomes magnetic again, because now you're not chasing him. You're not trying to drag him back. You're simply shining in your own lane, and that's irresistible. Confidence is not found in having all the answers. It's found in knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. And now let's go deeper. Sometimes a man pulls away not because he's scared of you, but because he's scared of himself. He knows he's not ready for what you represent. You awaken something in him, a higher standard, a deeper connection, a more authentic version of love. And he realizes he's not yet capable of meeting it. So instead of facing that truth, he runs, he ghosts, he becomes inconsistent because facing your value forces him to confront his own growth, and not everyone's ready for that. And that's why your job isn't to convince him to be ready. It's to stay aligned with your standard. Because the moment you lower it to keep him, you lose the very thing that made him drawn to you in the first place. Attraction may have sparked it, but your self-respect is what sustains it, and there's power in allowing space. When you stop chasing, you invite truth. You discover who's actually meant for you, and who was only there for the thrill of pursuit. Real connection isn't proven in the good times. It's proven in the spaces between. It's in those quiet moments when someone could choose to drift away, but chooses instead to return. And so when he pulls back, don't panic, observe, watch his actions, not his words. Does he come back when the silence settles? Does he make effort when it's inconvenient? Because consistency isn't about never pulling away. It's about who chooses to reconnect after the pull. And if he's the right person, he'll come back not because you begged him to, but because he realized that life feels emptier without your presence. But if he doesn't, that's not rejection, that's revelation. It's the universe clearing space for someone who won't need to lose you to realize your value. And the real power lies in how you respond to distance. Do you collapse and chase what's slipping away, or do you rise and let it reveal what's meant for you? Because love isn't about holding on, it's about aligning with someone who's holding on with you. And when you learn that lesson, you stop fearing the pullback. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's confusion. You stop giving temporary people permanent power over your peace. You realize that your calm confidence isn't what drives men away. It's what filters out the ones who were never meant to stay. And so, the next time someone pulls away after showing interest, don't see it as the end. See it as the truth unfolding. Let them reveal who they are, while you remain rooted in who you are. Because love that's meant for you won't require you to chase it. It will meet you halfway, it will stay consistent, and it will never need convincing. And when you begin to understand that dynamic, when you stop personalizing every withdrawal, every silence, every mixed signal, you step into your power. Because now, you're no longer reacting from fear, you're responding from clarity. You start to see that someone's distance is often more about where they are in life than it is about who you are. You begin to recognize patterns for what they are, defense mechanisms, not verdicts on your worth, and instead of trying to fix the situation, you start to observe it. You notice how a person handles their emotions when they are afraid. You see how they behave when the honeymoon phase fades. You see how they act when the illusion of control disappears, and that tells you everything you need to know. And when a man pulls away, it's an invitation for you to observe, not to chase. It's a chance to step back and see whether he's capable of emotional maturity or if he's still running from it. Because true connection doesn't disappear in the face of fear. It deepens through communication, honesty, and vulnerability. But that only happens when both people are ready. When one person isn't, it's not your job to drag them into readiness. You can't inspire emotional growth through pressure. You inspire it through example. By staying grounded, by being clear, by continuing to live your truth no matter who stays or who goes. And you must remember, the right person for you is not scared of your presence. They're not intimidated by your strength or your depth. They don't see your confidence as a threat. They see it as a gift. They don't pull away when things get real. They step closer because they recognize that real is rare. That's why you can't afford to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. Because every time you do, you teach them that they can have your energy without giving effort. You teach them that they can disappear and return as they please. And that's not connection, that's convenience. And the truth is, the ones who pull away easily were never ready for the version of love you're capable of giving. They might crave attention, but they don't yet have the capacity for intimacy. They may enjoy the chase, but they haven't developed the courage for consistency. They may love the idea of you, but not the responsibility of meeting you at your level. So when they back off, don't see it as rejection, see it as redirection. Every time someone pulls away, you're being guided closer to someone who won't. And sometimes the reason men pull away isn't fear, it's comfort. The moment they feel they have your attention, they relax. The chase is over, the excitement fades, and suddenly they're no longer investing. It's not that they stopped liking you. It's that their validation was never about building something meaningful. It was about proving something to themselves. That's why you have to be careful not to confuse intensity with intention. Just because someone starts strong doesn't mean they plan to stay. What matters isn't how they begin. It's what they do when the novelty wears off. And this is where your emotional discipline becomes your power. Instead of getting swept up in the excitement, you learn to stay grounded in reality. You stop assuming connection equals commitment. You stop letting chemistry blind you to consistency, because attraction might light the spark, but consistency builds the flame. If he's interested, you'll know it not just from words, but from effort, from time, from presence. And if that effort disappears, you'll know that too. You won't need to chase clarity. It will reveal itself through his actions. But here's where most people get trapped. When he pulls away, you start thinking that maybe if you say the right thing, if you show him how much you care, if you prove that you're different, he'll come back. But that's not how attraction or respect works. When someone distances themselves, your silence speaks louder than your pursuit. Because silence says, I value myself enough to let you choose. It says, I'm not here to convince you to see my worth. You'll either recognize it or lose it, and that energy is magnetic. It's what makes people rethink their choices. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. And that self-respect doesn't just protect you. It attracts the kind of person who's drawn to strength rather than control. You start to realize that your value doesn't diminish when someone walks away. It simply becomes invisible to those not ready to see it. And when you stop chasing what's fading, you make room for what's meant. You free yourself from emotional dependence. You stop tying your peace to someone else's presence. You stop living on edge, waiting for their next text, their next compliment, their next breadcrumb of attention. Instead, you become the source of your own stability. You start to move from a place of abundance, not scarcity. You know that if one connection fades, another will form one that's deeper, more aligned, more mutual. And this isn't about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about mastering your energy. It's about recognizing that love should expand you, not shrink you. That connection should bring peace, not anxiety, and that the right relationship doesn't leave you wondering if you're enough. It reminds you that you always were. And when a man pulls away, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? Because the story is where the pain lies. You might be telling yourself, he lost interest because I wasn't good enough. Or I said something wrong. Or I should have done more. But those stories are lies fear tells you to justify disappointment. The truth is, you could do everything perfectly and still not be right for someone who's not ready. You could be the most caring, kind, supportive person in the world, and still he might pull away, not because of something you did, but because of something in him that you can't fix. And that's why your job isn't to decode his behavior, it's to protect your peace. Every time you choose not to chase, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for something real. Every time you let go of someone who's unsure, you're making space for someone certain. Every time you walk away from inconsistency, you raise your standards. And those standards become a filter that separates the temporary from the timeless. And yes, sometimes that space will feel lonely. Sometimes you'll miss him. Sometimes you'll wonder if you made the right choice by not reaching out. But remember, missing someone doesn't mean they were right for you. It just means you're human. It means you have a heart that feels deeply. But you can feel deeply and still move wisely. You can miss someone and still know that chasing them would cost you your peace. And that's emotional maturity. It's knowing when to give grace and when to give space. It's understanding that you can care for someone without carrying them. It's recognizing that your peace is not a gift you hand out. It's a boundary you protect, because the truth is, love isn't just about how much you give. It's also about what you refuse to accept. And so, when a man pulls away, let him. Don't fight it. Don't beg for clarity. Don't compete with his confusion. Let distance do what it does best, reveal the truth. Because the right person doesn't need to lose you to realize your value. They'll feel it in your presence, they'll respect it in your silence, and they'll match it in their actions. And the wrong one will always test you. The right one will never make you question your place. And when you finally see that, you'll stop chasing love that runs. You'll start attracting love that stays. Because when you're anchored in your own worth, no amount of distance can shake your peace. You'll stop seeing his pullback as a punishment and start seeing it as protection from settling, from repeating old patterns, from losing yourself again in someone else's uncertainty. And when you rise above that fear, when you choose to stay grounded instead of desperate, something magical happens. You become the calm he's been searching for but never knew how to hold. And whether he returns or not, you've already won, because you've learned that love isn't about chasing connection. It's about becoming so whole that you only attract those who can meet you there. And when you reach that level of strength, everything changes, not because the world becomes easier, but because you stop needing it to be. You no longer chase after validation. You create it from within. You stop waiting for someone to come back and choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. You begin to live from a place of quiet certainty where you understand that love isn't something you earn by proving your worth. It's something that flows naturally toward those who live authentically in their worth, and that's when everything shifts, because now, instead of asking, "Why did he pull away?" you start asking, "Why did I let his inconsistency make me doubt my value?" And there's a profound difference between reacting to someone's behavior and observing it. When you react, you lose control. You get pulled into their emotional storm. But when you observe, you maintain your center. You notice what's happening without taking it personally. You start to see patterns not as personal attacks, but as information. Every pullback, every moment of silence, every mixed signal becomes a mirror showing you where someone truly is in their emotional development. And that's invaluable knowledge. And because here's the truth, not every man who seems interested is emotionally available. Some are drawn to the warmth of connection, but terrified of its depth. Some love the feeling of being desired, but can't handle what it means to be truly seen. They show up fully in the beginning because that stage doesn't require vulnerability. It's easy to be charming when nothing's at stake. But as soon as intimacy demands honesty, they begin to crumble under the weight of their own fears. And that's when they pull back, not because you did something wrong, but because you awakened something in them that they weren't ready to face. You see, connection is like a mirror. It reflects both beauty and wounds. And sometimes when a man starts to care, it stirs old insecurities, memories of rejection, fears of inadequacy. Suddenly, what started as fun becomes serious, and he's not sure if he can live up to what he feels you deserve. So he withdraws not because you're too much, but because he's afraid he's not enough. And that's why you must never shrink yourself to fit someone's comfort zone. Because if you dim your light just to keep them close, you teach them that love means self-abandonment. And that's not love, it's survival. Real love allows both people to be fully themselves. It doesn't ask you to play small. It doesn't require you to silence your needs. It invites you to be real, and it invites them to rise. And so, when a man pulls away, let it reveal who he truly is. Does he come back with accountability or with excuses? Does he seek clarity, or does he vanish in avoidance? Because how someone handles distance tells you everything about how they'll handle conflict. If he disappears when things get uncomfortable, imagine what happens when real challenges arise. Love isn't proven by how someone acts when it's easy. It's revealed by how they show up when it's hard. And yet, here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to make him come back is often the moment he does. Because now you've removed the emotional pressure. He feels the difference between your energy when it's rooted in need and when it's rooted in peace. He senses that your happiness no longer depends on him, and that creates intrigue, because independence is magnetic. It communicates confidence, security, and value. But even if he returns, that doesn't automatically mean he's ready. The question isn't, did he come back? It's, what version of him came back? Did he return with growth or just nostalgia? Did he come back because he's ready to meet your standard, or because he missed your energy? Because nostalgia isn't commitment, it's comfort. Missing you doesn't mean he's changed. It just means he remembers how good it felt to be near your light. But true transformation requires effort, consistency, and emotional courage. And that's where your boundaries protect you. Your boundary isn't about punishing him, it's about protecting your peace. It's a way of saying, I'm open to love, but not at the cost of my dignity. It's saying, you're welcome to come close, but only if you bring honesty, effort, and respect. Boundaries don't push people away, they filter out the ones who were never planning to stay. And you must remember, your calm is not weakness. Your silence is not indifference, it's power, because silence forces truth to speak. When you stop explaining, defending, and chasing, you leave space for the other person to reveal who they are. And if they care, they'll fill that silence with action, but if they don't, that silence will expose their apathy. Either way, you get your clarity, and this is why emotional composure is so attractive. If it shows that your sense of peace isn't for sale. It tells the world, I know my worth, and I won't abandon myself to prove it to you. That's the energy that draws in healthy love. Because healthy love doesn't thrive in chaos, it thrives in peace. It doesn't need constant reassurance, it feels safe in presence. It doesn't require chasing, it meets you halfway, and when you embody that energy, everything changes. You stop settling for potential. You stop waiting for someone to figure out what they want. You stop trying to build a relationship out of confusion. You start choosing peace over passion that burns too fast. You start prioritizing emotional safety over temporary excitement. And that's when you begin to attract the kind of connection that grows instead of drains. And the pullback stops being a punishment, it becomes a filter. Because every time someone pulls away, you get to see whether they're capable of coming back stronger, or whether they were only there for the thrill. And that's powerful knowledge. It saves you from investing years in people who were only ever meant to be lessons. And when you can stand in that awareness, you become untouchable. You stop giving energy to those who are confused about you. You stop replaying conversations in your mind, trying to find the moment you lost them. You stop romanticizing their potential and start respecting their reality. You start realizing that love is not about getting someone to choose you. It's about aligning with someone who's already chosen themselves enough to choose you too. And you begin to see that emotional availability isn't about how often someone texts, it's about how consistently they show up. It's about how willing they are to communicate when things feel uncertain. It's about how they handle their own fears instead of projecting them onto you. Because real maturity isn't about avoiding fear, it's about facing it together. And so when a man pulls away, instead of spiraling into doubt, shift your perspective. Ask yourself, what is this moment showing me? Maybe it's showing you his fear. Maybe it's showing you your own attachment patterns. Maybe it's teaching you how to stand strong in uncertainty. Every pullback, every silence, every delay, it's all feedback. And when you learn to listen to that feedback without losing yourself, you become emotionally invincible. And you start realizing that peace is your greatest asset, that your energy is sacred, that not everyone deserves access to you just because they were once charming. You understand that your role is not to prove your worth but to protect it, and that's where the most profound transformation happens. Because now you're not just reacting to love, you're leading it, and you're no longer the person who panics when someone withdraws. You're the person who stays calm, grounded, and focused. You're the one who says, if you need space, take it. I'll be here living my life, not waiting, not chasing, not begging. That energy doesn't just attract love, it commands respect. And what's beautiful is that once you master this, you stop fearing love altogether. You stop fearing loss, rejection, or disappointment, because you finally understand that losing someone who's not ready isn't a loss, it's a gift. It's freedom, it's protection, it's the universe moving you closer to someone who won't make you question your place in their life. Someone who won't pull away when things get real. Someone who won't confuse you with inconsistency. Someone who won't need to disappear to realize what they had. And that's what all of this is preparing you for. Every pullback, every heartbreak, every moment of confusion, it's building emotional muscle. It's teaching you to stay soft without being naive, strong without being closed off, open without being desperate, because that's what real strength is, the ability to love deeply while knowing that your happiness never depends on someone else's ability to stay. And when you reach that point of emotional maturity, you begin to move differently. You stop confusing effort with attachment. You stop equating intensity with intention. You stop mistaking someone's temporary attention for genuine interest. You finally understand that consistency is the truest form of affection, that real love doesn't come and go like waves, it stays steady through both calm and storm. And when you learn that, you start to see clearly who's ready for something real and who's just playing with the idea of it. And because, let's be honest, many people love the feeling of connection, but not the responsibility that comes with it. They love being adored, but not the accountability of being dependable. They crave emotional warmth, but they fear emotional depth. And so, they give you just enough to keep you invested, but not enough to make you secure. They oscillate between hot and cold, and you're left trying to decode the mixed signals, wondering how someone could act so interested one week and so distant the next. But what if, instead of decoding, you just decided to observe and detach, and imagine how freeing it would feel to stop taking inconsistency as a reflection of your worth? To stop thinking, "What did I do wrong?" and start thinking, "What is this showing me?" Because every pullback tells you something. It reveals whether someone is emotionally available, whether they value communication, whether they can handle the gravity of intimacy. And sometimes what it reveals isn't pretty, but it's the truth. And the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, always empowers you. And when someone pulls away, they're showing you their capacity for connection. They're showing you how they deal with vulnerability. They're showing you whether they're brave enough to stay when things get real. You don't need to fight that revelation. You need to respect it. Because chasing someone who's pulling away doesn't bring them closer. It teaches them that your love is unconditional even when they're inconsistent. And the moment you teach that lesson, you lose your power. And your power lies in knowing that love is mutual, or it isn't love at all. It's two people showing up, both choosing, both investing, both creating safety for each other. You cannot build something lasting with one person holding on and the other one running scared. Because love isn't about pursuit, it's about partnership. It's about two people moving in the same direction, not one pulling while the other resists. And when a man acts interested and then pulls away, he's showing you his rhythm. He's revealing the pace at which he feels safe to move. But that rhythm only becomes painful when you abandon your own to match his. You start waiting for his messages, planning your days around his availability, adjusting your energy to his moods, and slowly, without realizing it, you drift away from your center. And once you lose your center, you lose your power. That's why the most important thing you can do is to keep your rhythm steady, no matter what his looks like. And your rhythm is your confidence, your peace, your purpose. It's the energy you bring into the world when you're not anxiously waiting for someone to validate you. It's what makes you magnetic, because when you're grounded in your own energy, you radiate certainty. And that certainty is what draws the right kind of man toward you, the one who doesn't want to play games, who doesn't need to pull away to feel in control, who isn't afraid of what connection demands. And that's why the pullback, as painful as it feels, can actually be a blessing. It exposes who's aligned with you and who's not. It saves you from wasting years trying to make someone into who you wish they were. It teaches you that you can care deeply and still protect your peace. That you can love someone and still walk away when their inconsistency costs you your self-respect. That your heart can stay open even as you raise your standards higher. And you begin to realize that love is not about how someone makes you feel when things are easy. It's about how they show up when things get complicated. Anyone can act interested when there's no pressure, no risk, no vulnerability. But the real test is what happens when emotions deepen. Do they lean in or pull away? Do they communicate or disappear? Do they grow or retreat? Because real connection isn't built in moments of certainty. It's built in how two people handle uncertainty together. And so when someone pulls away, don't rush to fill the silence. Let the space speak. Let it show you the truth. Because if they care, they'll bridge the gap. If they don't, that silence becomes your closure. You don't need to demand explanations from someone who's already showing you the answer through their absence. Their consistency, or lack of it, is the explanation. And as you grow through this, something inside you begins to shift. You stop getting attached to potential. You stop falling for the version of someone that exists only in your mind. You stop seeing love as a rescue mission. You start realizing that your peace is not negotiable, that your energy is sacred, that the love you're seeking isn't found in someone who keeps you guessing. It's found in someone who brings you calm. And the moment you internalize that, the entire dynamic changes. You no longer chase, because you know that what's meant for you doesn't require pursuit. You no longer beg for reassurance because you've learned to self-soothe. You no longer try to earn love because you understand that love that must be earned isn't love, it's performance. And you're done performing, you're done proving, you're done shrinking to fit into someone else's uncertainty. And you start to radiate a quiet power, the kind that comes from knowing you can walk away from anything that disturbs your peace. You stop responding to mixed signals, because clarity has become your love language. You stop investing energy in people who make you feel small, because you've learned that the right connection expands you. It doesn't drain you. You stop replaying conversations and start observing patterns. You stop asking, "Why did he pull away?" and start asking, "Why did I allow someone's inconsistency to make me question my worth?" And that's when you truly rise. You realize that the pullback wasn't the problem, it was the teacher. It showed you how to stand alone without collapsing. It showed you that your emotional stability is not dependent on someone else's availability. It showed you that real strength isn't about holding on, it's about knowing when to let go with grace. And because the truth is, you don't need someone who pulls away when things get real. You need someone who leans in. Someone who values communication over control. Someone who sees connection not as confinement but as partnership. Someone who doesn't need distance to remember your value because they never forget it in the first place. And until you meet that person, your job isn't to chase love. It's to live in such alignment with your worth that only those who match it can access you. And when you live that way, you stop settling for half-hearted love. You stop waiting for apologies that never come. You stop accepting the bare minimum because it's familiar. You start raising your vibration, and in doing so, you begin to attract people who are emotionally fluent people who can meet you at the level of depth you've grown into. The ones who see your strength as an invitation, not intimidation. The ones who don't run when things get serious because they've already done the work to be ready for serious. And so the next time someone acts interested and then pulls away, don't lose yourself trying to pull them back. Let them create the space they think they need, because real love doesn't fear closeness. It thrives in it. And anyone who needs to step away to appreciate you isn't ready for the kind of love you're capable of giving. That's not your loss, it's their lesson. And you, on the other hand, keep walking in your truth, keep being consistent in your energy. Keep showing up for yourself the way you wish someone would show up for you, because every time you do, you're becoming the kind of person who doesn't just wait for love. You attract it naturally. You're becoming the kind of person who no longer fears someone's absence, because your presence is already full. You're becoming the kind of person who no longer confuses being chosen with being valued, because you already know your worth, whether anyone else recognizes it or not.